Welcome back to the Beyond Default podcast, and welcome to a new year. Happy New Year. I hope that you were able to take on some of my advice from the end of 2025 and take the time to really reflect on, what you're proud of for the year 2025, to recognize and your achievements, just to realize some of the things that you needed to let go of and release, and also to have an opportunity for a well-earned rest. I feel like I've done all of those things and I'm starting the year nice and fresh. And one of the other reasons why I'm starting the year so fresh is that I've actually really taken the time over my break, really not until I'd gone through those steps, but over my break to think about what is it that I want for the year 2026. And in fact, what I've thought about is if I was to sit down at the end of this year and be able to say, I felt really proud of these things, what would they be? And so what I've done is I've gone through a bit of a 6-step process, and I wanted to talk to you about that today. And maybe you just might want to leverage some of that as well. This is not dissimilar to strategies I use with my coaching clients. And I use them for myself because I believe in them wholeheartedly. For those of you who don't know much about my background in coaching is actually in brain-based coaching. So I did an accreditation based on brain-based coaching, and that was with the Neuro Leadership Institute in Australia. And something that I really discovered during that accreditation period was the power of the mind, and actually how untapped a resource it really is for most people. So the reason I'm telling you that is that I feel like I really wanted to share with you some things that your mind can do to help you or even hinder you in the year ahead. So let's start off with the first step. The first step that I believe is going to set you up for success in the next year is to have a vision, and really to think about, what is it that I want? If I was to imagine a year from now, what would my life look like? What are the things that I want to have? Now, I'm not talking of specific jobs or details. Like, be careful not to get too detailed here. This is about a big picture, painting a vision for yourself, and what your life, what you want from your life this year. There's a saying that says, often people overestimate what they can do in 30 days, but underestimate what they can do in a year. And a vision really helps you to do that. Now, sometimes, there's kind of stories about things like The Secret and manifesting and vision boards and things like that. And I'm not necessarily professing that those things are true, but I guess what I learned in my coaching accreditation is actually the power of vision and visualization, and actually that it can help create neural pathways in your brain to help you achieve what you envision. And in fact, Olympic athletes, Olympic coaches, coaches that all around the world, and successful people all around the world use the strategy of visualization to achieve success. Now, I want to share a story with you. There's a British athlete. His name is Linford Christie, and in 1992, he actually won the gold medal at the Olympic Games. And he ran the 100 metres men's race under 10 seconds. I think it was like 9.2 seconds or something he achieved. Now, afterwards, he was interviewed by the media, and the media were like, how did you do it? How does it feel? And he said, well, you know what? I've run this race 1,000 times. So it was almost like he was a bit like, oh, yeah, I won the gold medal, but I've actually run this race 1,000 times. And they said to him, wait a second, you've never actually run this race before. This is the first time you've done this. And he said, no, I've run this race 1,000 times in my mind. Every step of that track I have run, I have visualized it in my mind 1,000 times. So he'd already run that race. He'd already got that time. He'd already won that gold medal 1,000 times in his mind before he actually ran the race. So by the time he got there, his brain was fully prepared. There was a neural pathway ready for that experience to happen. So that is the power of visualization. I guess the thing is that I want you to learn from that experience is this, that when it comes to creating neural pathways in your brain and ensuring that visioning work can work for you, it's not just a kind of lofty, I'll pop a vision board together and therefore my dreams come true. Like, it's not like that. It's something you have to work at. Just like Linford Christie said, he visualized it, 1,000 times in his mind. So what you want to do is get that visualization and really make it emotive. Like, what are the things that how do you picture success for you, and make it really personal for you. The other thing is to look at that regularly, to really absorb it. With my vision board that I've created, I'm looking at that every single morning when I wake up. So I wake up, I go for my walk, I'm coming back, and I am looking at that vision and going through the three kind of major themes on that vision board and saying them to myself. So you want to regularly look at it. You want to make sure that the vision board is affirmative. It's not, like I will have, or often people are trying to steer away from things, but if you're trying to steer away from something, what does good look like once you've steered away from it? So make it affirmative or positive, and create the present. I know someone who, for their vision board, got a picture of, the body that they wanted to achieve that year and lose this particular weight. And they cut the head of the person off the body and put their head on the top of it. So, make it you, make it really personal. Okay. But you got to look at it often. And today what I want to do is I want to suggest some books to you that have helped me. Now, what I would say to you is I probably read anywhere between 2 to 3 books a month, whether it's a physical book or I listen to a book. And I do that really from 15 minutes of reading every day. Okay, so that's how I get through that many books. I don't try and read lots of books all at once. But as a result of that, over many, many years, I've read lots of books that have mentored me and helped me to be able to do the things that I want to do. One of the first books I want to recommend to you today is this, The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. The reason I want to recommend this to you is that I think sometimes how we envision what our life is going to be is based on where our life has been. And I think what this book does is it helps you to really think about, am I thinking big enough for my life? And of course, this podcast is all about beyond default. And often, if we only look at our own paradigm for creating our future, how do we live a life by design? But a book like that can help just lift the lid on some of your thinking. So step 1 is a vision. Step 2 is goals. So when it comes to writing goals, you want to make sure that you look at your vision and you say, okay, how do I make sure that my goals are actually aligned to my vision? These are the things that are going to be the stepping stones that I can tick off along the way to say, yep, I've done that by this time, that are going to get you to that ultimate vision that you want. Okay, so align them with your goals. Make them specific. So obviously, I'm sure you know about SMART goals. So you want to make it specific. You want to make it measurable. So like set a date, make it really specific that you can say, I want this by this date. Make it achievable. So, one of the best things to do when it comes to goal setting is engage a coach of some type so they can, sense with you, like, is this a reasonable goal that you're setting up for yourself? Often when people set unrealistic goals and they don't achieve them, they'll give up. But it's actually just the goal. I mentioned before that often people overestimate what they can do in a short period of time, but underestimate what they can do in a year. So that vision that you've got for this year, you're breaking that down in, maybe 90-day chunks to go, okay, what are my goals for this 90 days? But make them really specific. Get someone to check, is it achievable for you? Make it time bound. And of course, make yourself accountable to it, or you've got to be accountable to someone, whether it's a coach or a friend, a partner, whatever it may. Goal setting on your own is not really going to be very helpful for you. You'll lose track. So And look, that probably leads me to recommend a particular book to you today, and that is this book, which is Focus. This is a great book. It's by one of the globally recognised experts in goal setting. His name is Keith Abraham. He's actually based in Queensland, Australia. We are having an event with him this week. If you want to find out about that, please reach out to me privately, and I'm more than happy to help you understand how you can get into that event. But he's actually going to be talking to our whole health community around how to set goals to set them up for success for the year, okay, which is really exciting. But, you know, some of the things that you want to think about when it comes to goals is there are potentially going to be some things that get in your way. So let's talk a little bit about that. And that's the reason I'm mentioning this book. I also really love his resources. So Keith has extra resources like the blueprint for success, which can be, I've seen a lot of people using that to get them set up for the year. But I just want to talk about some of the things, and this leads me to my step 3, and that is about the things that get in your way. So when you set goals, before you get into action or working out how you're going to achieve those goals, the next thing you want to do is straight up think, what do I need to stop doing? Jim Collins wrote a book called Good to Great, and he talks about, you know, one of the differences between great leaders and good leaders is that great leaders know how to make decisions around the things they need to stop doing. What are the things that I need to stop doing that are getting in the way of me achieving my success? Okay, so I just want to highlight a few things that Keith actually talks about in this book. First of all, he talks about distractions. You know, I think that often we can be really distracted by things that are not helping us get to our goals. I had a mentor of ours share a proverb with us recently. Now, to follow the proverbs, you don't have to be a Christian by any means to follow the proverbs. Basically, the proverbs were developed by lots and lots of people, but many of them were developed by Abraham, who was considered one of the most wise people of his time. Now, the reason the Proverbs were developed was actually to help people live in a wise way in daily life. And so, you know, there's no need to, I guess, steer away from the goodness of the Proverbs because of the fact that you may not necessarily be a religious person. But there is a lot of goodness to be had. Now, this proverb actually says, the dog barks, but the caravan moves on. And I think this is, you know, this proverb is all about ignoring distractions. People will talk, they'll criticize, there'll be things come at you. Try not to let that stop you. Focus on your goals, okay? The barking dog is just a noise, so block it out. And also to learn strategies on how to be resilient. And I really think that's how a coach and mentor can be hugely valuable, is like going, you know, is this a distraction? Is this something that's getting in my way? Is this a dog barking that I just need to block out? Okay, so distractions. The other thing that he talks about in this book is procrastination. He's got some great strategies on overcoming procrastination. And of course, one of them is keeping your vision really, really in mind for you. Okay. The other thing about when you're setting your goals and thinking about what to stop doing, start thinking about your time as like a bank account. You know, sometimes we use our time as if it's endless. A mentor of mine has a saying that she says, my love is unconditional, but my time is not. And so use your time conditionally rather than like this endless bank account. Okay, use it like it is money, it is a bank account, it's finite, and use it that there are conditions on how you do what you do with your time. Look, I think the other thing that can get in people's way is perfectionism. I have certainly been in that place. I've had to work hard with letting go of perfectionism. In fact, this is a great book by Tal Ben-Shahar. I read this book many, many years ago, probably 20 years ago now, and I was given it by a coach. I'm so grateful for her for passing this on to me. But basically in this book, he actually talks about perfectionism, like being, it's like an addiction, and actually referring to himself as a recovering perfectionist, that, it's something that he's not over. He has to watch himself, just like an alcoholic would need to do with alcohol. He has to watch himself all the time to not get sucked into the addiction of perfectionism. But one of the really things that I love about this book is that he talks about the fact that perfectionism and happiness are at opposite ends of the spectrum, and that whenever we are chasing perfectionism, we are moving ourselves further away from happiness. And so in your life, if there are things that are stealing your joy, or actually if your perfectionism is making you steal your own joy, then how do you get over that? How do you stop doing that? Because again, it's going to be hard to feel fulfilled by your goals that you're achieving and the things that you're doing if perfectionism is constantly driving you, because often what we try and do is just be perfect at everything. And remember, there's only a few things that we're focusing on. And when we try to be perfect at everything, we end up being very, very unhappy, but not achieving the most important things to us. So the other thing, the other book that I was going to recommend is Finish. This book here, this is a book by Steve Ackoff. It talks about giving the gift of done. And I think when it comes to goal setting, one of the things that we often hear people say, I don't have a problem with starting. I have a problem with finishing. And this book is all about giving yourself the gift of being done. So, if you've got a problem with starting and not finishing, maybe you need to read this and, find out for yourself how you give yourself the gift of done. And I'm going to talk about some strategies a little later that might help you to work out how you can be a great finisher. Now, of course, I'm not just trying to load you up with lots of books for you to go out and read all at once, but maybe one or two of them might resonate with you that you could just add to your book reading list. So we've talked about vision and goals and stop doing. I think that the other thing that can get in our way of achieving our vision is a lack of belief. And, I mentioned about the power of the mind, and there's a lot of times where psychologists refer to these things that come into our mind called automatic negative thoughts. I refer to them as red thoughts because they often stop you in your tracks, or they stop you from achieving your goals. And basically they are thoughts like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not as good as that person, or I'm not worthy of that. I should be able to do this, or labeling yourself, I'm hopeless. There's a number of them. There's about 10 of them that psychologists refer to, and I'll teach that another time. What I really wanted to talk about today is actually the way to work around that, and that is affirmations. So just like visualization has been scientifically proven to create neural pathways, as has affirmations. But look, they don't work from, if you've got an app that puts a little positive phrase onto your phone every day, or, you just try and say something positive yourself every time you hear something negative. I mean, yes, that can be good, but that's not actually how affirmations truly work, okay? In order for affirmations to create new neural pathways in your brain, they need to be something you practice as a daily habit. And it's the same things every single day. So when it comes to affirmations, exactly the same as a visualization. You want to make your affirmation really emotive, put some emotive words in it. You want to do it regularly. So I'm saying my affirmations at the moment every morning and every evening. So I've got them beside my bed, so they're the last thing I put into my mind, and I've got them every morning so that they're one of the first things that I say in my morning routine. So you want to work out a routine of being able to say them to yourself every day. They also need to be affirmative. So it's not an I will, it's an I am statement. And and very emotive. You want it in the present. So I am this now. I'm not then or when, I am now. So it's very much in the present. Now, I do have a PDF, and I will teach this at some stage through the podcast this year. But I do have a PDF if you want to reach out to me, and I can share with you a PDF on how to write affirmations so they truly, truly work for you. Because again, a very untapped resource that is just so easy for people to tap into. And that can help you with building the belief, the worthiness that you can actually achieve what you want in this year. Okay, so 4 steps so far: vision, goals, what do you need to stop doing, and some affirmations. Let's go to step 5 for having an awesome year this year, and that is getting into daily action, so habits. When it comes to getting into habits, one of the things that, so again, I'm going to share a book with you. Read this book a long, long time ago, probably 25 years ago. It's a bit of a heavier book than the ones that I've recommended to you, but Stephen Covey, look, he is one of the I guess the founders, the fathers of good habits for success. And in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, when he talks about effective time management, he talks about diarising things. So just like you diarise time to take the kids here and time to take the kids there and meetings at work and different things like that, and you put things in your calendar, he actually refers to diarising time for yourself. Okay, so one of the first things that I have done in my calendar, and this might seem a bit anal to you, but this is how I protect my time for me. And it's also a strategy that Stephen Covey talks about. I've gone into my calendar and I've got, here's when I wake up, here's when I go for my walk, here's my time for my vision, my affirmations, my goals, my reading, my Bible study. There's the time for that. Here's the time for me to get ready, and then I'm off to work. Okay, and then again in the evening, I've got that time diarised again. When is my time for me? When do I, and I've even got an alarm on my phone that tells me, come on, Katrina, it's time for you, so that I stop doing everything that I need to do. I stop doing things for other people, and I really prioritize myself. So I've taken on that strategy from Stephen Covey, and I would really recommend it to you is, diarise your time that is meant for you. If you need to have a morning, like a lunchtime walk at work, put the time in your calendar. Okay, if you need to make sure you eat lunch at work, diarise the time in your calendar. Okay, don't let it fill up with everything else. So what you want to do is you take your vision, you grab your goals, and now you want to turn them into, what am I going to do every day in order to get that outcome? So I mentioned earlier that I would often read, probably 25 to 30 books a year, but that 25 to 30 books a year, whilst that seems like a big thing, I do it through 15 minutes a day. And so that's what I want you to think about is, what can I do every day that's going to help me get to my vision? Now, a great way for you to get that idea is this book here, The Compound Effect. This is a classic example of, what do I need to do every day in order to get my success, okay? And that it takes time to, like if I set out a goal and went, I'm going to read, 30 books this year, that would feel overwhelming. But if I'm going to set a goal, I'm going to read 15 minutes a day, that feels very much achievable, okay? Now, often what happens, the reason why people give up on goals, we see it all the time in our health community. People give up on a weight loss goal because they're not immediately achieving the goal that they wanted. They're like, I'm doing this every single day. And, I'm not saying this big weight loss. It's like, that's because it happens over time. Anything that happens really fast like that isn't sustainable. Okay, life and health and all of the things that we really, truly, dearly want in our lives happen over time. And so the compound effects can teach that. One of the analogies that I heard, I watched a podcast with Darren Hardy once, and so Darren Hardy is the author of this book. I watched a podcast with him once, and he talked about the concept of the bamboo tree. And he said that the bamboo tree, when planted, stays very, very small for up to 3 to 4 years. But within the space of about 2 weeks, it grows meters. So it goes from very small to meters high within the space of about 7 to 10 days. Okay, and that's the idea of the compound effect. Sometimes you don't notice the things that are happening in your mind, in your body, in your life, from the little daily actions. But when you're persistent with them, they can pay off over time. Okay, and I guess in one of the best books I would definitely recommend as far as getting into really terrific habits is this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. So a lot of our health program is designed around his philosophies. A lot of our mentorship that we do, a lot of my coaching is all designed around these philosophies of atomic habits. And that is that in order to if you think about here's my vision, here's my goals, I want to put these into daily habits. In order to create habits that are sustainable, you need to make them obvious. You need to make them attractive. You need to make them easy and simple. And then, of course, he layers so many strategies over that on things that you can do to help you make your life atomic and help you get into habits every single day that are going to help you towards your vision. The other thing he does really well in this book is look at how do you use exactly the same approach but in the opposite way to break any bad habits. Okay, if you've got a bad habit of hitting the snooze button, if you've got a bad habit of eating chocolate, like whatever it might be that you've got a bad habit of, how do you reverse engineer the atomic habits to help you to stop those habits as well and make it really unattractive, not easy at all, not obvious, and very hard instead of simple. Okay, so a great book. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk to you about when it comes to making this year really the year that you achieve all of your goals is the 6th step, and that is environment. So this book is terrific. Willpower Doesn't Work by Benjamin Hardy. Now, I think one of the biggest insights I got from reading this book is that often people can start motivated. They can start with a lot of willpower and they can have their own personal willpower. But without the right environment, it's very, very difficult. And most people will give up. And so when we talk about environment is, well, what's the environment in your head? What's the mindset? So making sure that you're reading the right books, you're listening to the right podcasts that are putting the right thinking into this environment. The next thing is, what environment are you putting yourself, the physical environment you're putting yourself in? What's happening in your home? What's happening in your work, in your social environment? Who are the people in your community? Are they people who are encouraging you to achieve your goals? Or are they people that are a little bit like the barking dogs and you're trying to move the caravan forward, but the barking dogs are telling you not to do this? Okay, and what I would say to you is you've got to find yourself the right environment. This is not saying that you have to get rid of your friends, but how do you have both? How do you put yourself in an environment that is going to help you succeed? The other thing is to look at engaging a coach. Okay, this is not a plug for you to engage me, but you do need help. Okay, you need help to check that your goals are in line. You need encouragement from a coach to keep you going. You need a community that does that as well. So engage yourself, a coach or a mentor who is going to help you to be accountable, who is going to, and this has got to be someone who is experienced in the goals that you want to achieve. So look at what you want to achieve for this year and engage yourself, a coach or a mentor that can help you in that space. Okay, because you can't get where you want to go with the same mind that got you here, because it's clearly not getting you where you want to be. Okay, so you need some different thinking to come into play. So we've talked about 6 simple steps today. We've talked about having a vision, getting some goals that really align with that vision, thinking about the things you need to stop doing and getting those out on the table first, writing some affirmations and doing some affirmations so that you can really have the mindset that is going to be getting you towards your goal. Getting into a space of daily action on habits that are aligned to your goals that you want to achieve, and putting yourself in an environment that's going to make all of this happen, and having people around you who are going to encourage you, guide you, and lift you up to achieve your goals. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Let me know what you think.